Subscribing to this channel provides you regular access to professional advice on independent operators. If you want to support us, like, share, and turn on that notification.
Welcome to Making Your Miles Count Production, an educational program to all Canadian lease owner-operators with your host, Robert Scaper.
Well, welcome to Make Your Miles Count podcast, and today we got a little bit off topic, but not really off topic from our norm. We ordinarily talk about operations of an independent operator and how to be efficient and that kind of thing. Today we're going to talk about the most famous event in probably modern history, at least from a trucking perspective, and that is the Truckers' Convoy. And today we got Alan Hebert is my co-host, as well as Ross Zacharias. And all of us have been to the, we're in Ottawa, and we'll tell our stories, how we got there and maybe how we got back, that kind of thing too. But we don't want to make it, I don't want to say, I don't want to offend anybody, but I don't care sometimes because some people are too sensitive. But realistically, we want to focus on the actual event itself and how we experienced it. And yes, I think we all have very, very strong political opinions, but I'm trying to just make it, this is what actually happened as opposed to what should or should not have happened, that kind of thing, if it can happen. Because realistically, I think the biggest thing has to do with how it's been portrayed in the media, and realistically, there are hundreds of thousands of videos, and there's just tons of stuff out there that makes it very, very clear. There wasn't anything violent or anything like that on it, but of course, the media says what it wants to say, and people will say what they want to say as well. Obviously, it was in the context of the global shutdown, and there's a lot of people who lost everything that they had. Lot of people, and there were some people, not very many, but some people made absolute fortunes, and where guys, one guy bought a what do you call these hand sanitizing dispensing system just before the pandemic, and guy's a multi-millionaire now because he sold his product like crazy. So there's some people who did really well, but an unbelievable amount of people lost basically their retirement, their fortunes in there. So and the general rule, I don't know of any government employee that did not get paid, whether they worked or not. And that was, I would guess, the government's policy that they would say, okay, all government employees get paid no matter what. I know there was a lot of work that didn't get done from an accounting perspective. We generally have audits going all the time. There was probably, at any given time, we have 5, 10, 15 audits, depending. And it was pretty much all shut down for almost a year, and it was just pretty amazing. So that being said, maybe we can, I'll tell you a little bit of the history of what I experienced long prior before the pandemic. I guess I consider myself a little bit of a skeptic from many regards. I think everybody's a little bit of a contrarian here today. The world zigs, we zag kind of a thing. But in 1995, 1996, I was finishing up my master's degree, and one of the courses that we took, I can't even remember what the course name was, but we studied industries in depth and what this industry does, that kind of thing. For an example, the industry that spends the most amount of money on advertising is the automobile industry. Toyota, Ford, all these billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions. And then we studied the pharmaceutical industry. And the claim to fame for the pharmaceutical industry is they are the most corrupt industry on the planet. And I remember thinking, and we went through, the biggest fines in global history all went to pharmaceuticals. Actually, Pfizer, I think, had the top two or something like that. It was just like just a huge thing. And we talked about it in class, and I remember thinking, this is an industry that we buy our aspirins from and stuff like this. Some of the history of these pharmaceuticals are horrible. I don't know if anybody knows Bayer, Bayer. They tested their products on people during World War II, like the Jews, and exterminated. Like, thank you for 150 people. They all died. Can you send another 150? That's what they. It's a horrible legacy some of these these industries have. So I was very skeptical, always of pharmaceuticals in there. So, in context of the pandemic itself, when it comes to the vaccination, in my opinion, you guys can chime in too, the individual who started the mandates, or at least the seed of it, is Donald Trump, because after he was talking about ivermectin and
hydroxychloroquine,
all these things, and that was somehow or other shut down. And then he said, "Well, okay, then we're going to fast track vaccinations." And I remember hearing him say fast track vaccination. We looked at some of the stuff that pharmaceuticals do to get things into the market, and I'm going, you're in a fast track thing? It takes like 10 years. You don't have any trials. What are you doing? Like, who is advising him? I go, oh, crap. Where's this come from? I thought, well, maybe they'll just, more sane minds will prevail, and they're not going to do it.
Not true.
There was apparently no sane minds
available
at the time. They were all busy doing something else because realistically, that started the ball rolling towards vaccinations being pushed and or basically introduced as a voluntary, and then it was converted from voluntary into mandating. And I remember very clearly when they first came out with the vaccinations, they said, well, this is only for people over 60 years of age with preconditions or stuff like this, and we do not recommend it at all for children.
And all smokers would die of COVID.
Oh yeah. And so I mean, they said we do not recommend it for children. And I thought, okay, well, you know what, I understand it, and maybe whatever. I'll just think about it a little bit. Now we look in hindsight, and then now they mandatorily push it onto children. That is a marketing type of a scheme where you start people. It's like a drug addict. Realistically, here's this, and now we'll do this, and then now we'll do this, and it's not bait and switch. What do they call that in business? Where you start something and then you say one thing and then it leads and then it just grows and you become dependent on it. I can't remember. There's actual a business term for it. It's like a scam, but or whatever. But anyway, that's a marketing ploy kind of a thing.
Strategy.
And anyway, I got some notes here, because I get notorious for rabbit trails. But maybe Ross, you want to tell us how you originally found out about the convoy, and then how you got there.
Right.
And introduce yourself.
Well, I've been driving for roughly around 30 years, and was driving for a local company here. I won't mention their name as they don't appreciate it. But no, during the entire pandemic, I was crossing the border, spending probably 3 weeks out of 4 on the U.S. side. Now, in those 3 weeks, I would maybe come in contact with 10 people, maybe 20. You'd walk into Costco here, and sure, they had their lineups outside that would take hours to get in, but 30 seconds, you've come in contact with more people than I did. So that was my big bells going off, is why would you force me to do something when I'm delivering you the PPE you need to supposedly stay safe? And I heard it basically just on the radio. There was this convoy coming across Canada, and I talked about it with my wife. And
radio.
Or
Yeah,
CB?
like it was just on the radio talking about these
What
trucks.
radio?
Oh,
Like XM, Sirius, AM, FM?
it would have been FM.
Oh,
Yeah,
FM,
so
okay.
probably like 94, 97, something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah, and it was a mild mention, but it got me thinking because I had just crossed the border for the last time. That was January the 10th. Mandate hit January 15th. So my company refused to send me out. So now I'm stuck to drive only Canada, which has always hated truck drivers as far as I'm concerned. There's no truck stops. There's no pullouts. There's no nothing, So I've never enjoyed driving in Canada, and heard about this convoy. It's like fantastic. It's what we need. We need something to wake people up. I was seeing too much on the road, So I contacted the company. I want to join this, and they were like, "Okay, no problem. You have to cover up the logo and register under your own name. No problem." In 24 hours. Working my butt off. I got magnetic signs. I got registration. Got everything packed up. Got, I think, $400 of donations from people that I knew. That was enough to. I didn't care. Let's just go. I sat at the number one and for about 4.5 hours until the convoy arrived. Scooted right in there and away we went. Most awesome time of my life that will ever happen. No.
Right on. So you were the one who told me about it
Yeah, so
because you listen to radio and I don't.
actually it wasn't on the radio. That I think I saw it on Facebook, and we heard about the convoy coming, and when it arrived in Winnipeg, I think it went around the perimeter.
Yeah.
And my daughter and we went to Deacon's Corner to cheer everybody on, and it was so cold.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was frightfully cold, but I was so encouraged by the number of people that were out there. There was, in spite of how horrific the weather was, there were so many people that
Passionate.
and passionate.
Remember that guy in the back of a half ton or whatever had his shirt
shirt
off
off,
and
yeah.
was
Yeah.
holding the flag or whatever? I'm going,
Because
it's
it
30
wasn't-
below, buddy.
Yeah.
Only
Well,
in
it
Canada.
impacted the truckers, the cross-border truckers.
Yeah.
The groundswell of the populace that started recognizing that the country was being led into a terrible direction.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even just the unvaccinated. Many who were vaccinated did it because they had no choice. If they wanted to have their job, if they wanted to feed their family, they had no choice. So you had people rallying that were vaccinated. You had people rallying that were unvaccinated and didn't feel that it should be imposed upon them. You had people rallying for all sorts of different reasons. One of the reasons was there was no hope in the whole country. There was nothing giving a brighter future. The future was only worse, getting blacker and blacker for ourselves, for the future of our kids and our grandkids, for the future of the country. And so people were looking for, there's got to be some hope somewhere. And when the trucker convoy started building momentum, there was millions of people that looked at that as this is the signature of hope. Here's finally something that we can see is going to change the course of Canada's history in the direction that it's going, and can change what's happening. And so you had so many people that. So what happened in our case, after going, or just a few days before this, I had mentioned this to you, Rob, and said, you want to go? And Rob was, I don't know about this. I don't want to get,
I don't have much faith in protests. I didn't at that time. I've never seen any progress.
Same here.
It's all negatives, and I got.
And you got to be careful because you've got clientele that maybe were on both sides of this.
Yeah.
But you didn't know where they were at, and so you didn't want to be ostracized or.
I'm not anti-vax, man. If there'd be smallpox, I'd go smallpox. Any polio or anything like that, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's not what's actually happening. That was a completely different. It took smallpox, it took hundreds of years to get the vaccination for that. Downright.
Exactly.
Because the original ones, you get pox on your face and all sorts of stuff like this. And so like what, 2 years to get a vaccination? Like I flag. Now, having said that, my wife and I, we talked about it, and we have 35 employees or something like that. If it would have come to keeping the business afloat, because I now have employees.
Yes.
That depend.
It wasn't just your life.
Yeah,
it's all these other
life. I would have taken it.
Yeah.
And actually, I was in the process of saying, okay, well, if I'm going to take it, which one? So I started going down the list, which one, I said, okay, if I'm in that corner, I want to be prepared to know, okay, now I'm going to take that one.
Yes.
And so I was prepared for it. I actually told many truck drivers, well, you know what? If it's your livelihood, I mean, you got to get vaccinated.
I was in the
Even
same
my own son. I told my son to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And but anyway,
because so what happened was I called you on it and said, "What do you think about this?" I think we should consider. Why don't we go together? Why I want to go, but I don't want to go by myself. Rob, you want to come with me? And Rob said, "Well, I got a staff meeting. I think the next day. Why don't you come and
we'll discuss
it over there?"
Yeah.
So I joined him here in his office, and the table was full of of his key people in his team, and I.
You made your presentation.
I made my presentation there, and then everybody heard about this, and everybody's like, "Yes, let's."
No, they didn't say that because I looked. Were they?
You can tell by their faces that most of them were really on board about this.
Because I looked at it and I said, "You know what? I'll tell you." And then I made my case that I wasn't going to go.
Yes.
But
then your statement where, well, let's put it to a vote, and I'll do whatever the majority says.
Those are words you really have to really watch out for, because I put my whole life into somebody else's hands. I've never done that before.
Yes. And here you're the owner of the company, and you're saying, okay, employees, whatever you employees think, I'll just do whatever you guys think. That was a very risky
and it was
move.
7 out of 7. And I remember thinking, crap.
Now, we were leaving I think it was the next day.
That night, wasn't it?
Was it that night?
Yeah.
Because I think it was the next morning. Because we joined up with we drove to the other side of Kenora, and then waited on the other side of Kenora, because I think you guys were staying here in Winnipeg, and we drove.
We stayed in
where?
In Kenora. That's where the Hutterites came and brought us food.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
That's right. We had to catch up.
Huge.
We had to catch up with you guys into Kenora.
Yeah.
Because you were staying the night. So we left early in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we waited on the other side of Kenora for you guys to...
That was a cold night.
Yes. Yes.
And all these poor women wearing their long dresses, just freezing.
Yes.
Oh, I felt so bad.
Yeah. And we saw the thousands of people that were along the way.
Yeah.
But then as we drove along, and it was so incredibly cold, but people were waiting for hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
At the ends of their driveways.
Yep.
Some of them with little fires, some of them with nothing.
Oh, yeah, the bonfires.
Some of them had, there was so many flags and people writing with spray paint on the snow, and
fire trucks with their ladders out and flags hanging.
And then we started seeing, as we approached, people were jumping up and down.
Yeah.
Had to keep warm somehow.
Yeah, I suppose. But they were, like, for us, it was like the Savior has come to the world. Yep. It was almost that the amount of emotion that was being portrayed. Yep. It was so emotional for us and for you and for all the drivers out there to see the response of so many people along the road. Yep. It was this is far bigger than what we had ever imagined it would be. This wasn't just because of the truckers. This was all of Canada.
Pent-up frustration for 2 years.
2 years of you're alone. If you're thinking negative, you felt alone. You couldn't go to your neighbor.
No.
Okay, when you weren't allowed to have gatherings, you had neighbors ratting out neighbors.
Yeah, you
didn't know who to trust.
Yeah.
We had to be able to see my parents, who also decided not to take the shot.
Yeah.
We would have to take our vehicle out of the garage. They would drive in. I'd open the door. They'd come in, close the door. Done deal.
You had to hide.
Yeah.
You were hiding.
Oh, yeah. It felt like, what I can only imagine Nazi Germany felt like in World War II.
Or Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
And we all heard about, parents and people who were all alone
Yep.
in a hospital room and nobody could be with them in their
That
dying
is
days.
so sad.
It was,
so
there
sad.
were so many horrific stories
Yep.
that were surfacing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the Freedom Convoy started coming through, people said, there's maybe a way that we can change what this country has become.
Yeah.
Because it had become a horrible place.
Yeah.
A horrible place
Canada.
to be. Canada.
Whoever would have thought?
Yeah.
Canada. People have now moved back to their original countries because they came here thinking it was a country of freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many people were trying to find a way out?
Yeah.
Right? We were trying to find a way. How can we get to Mexico? Can we get to
Yep.
Costa Rica?
Mm-hmm.
People were trying everything to get out of this country.
We had, I think, six clients who somehow before June 30th, there was a deadline or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
6 clients sold everything and they left. Went
Yep.
Mexico, Paraguay, Bolivia,
Belize?
Belize.
Belize,
That's
yeah.
Belize. And they just, that's an awful lot.
Yeah.
That's
Two of them that used to be your clients drove my truck right before I sold it and then moved out to Bolivia.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know and some of them are still there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, many of them
That's for
are
sure.
still there.
Yeah, yeah. We have good friends who just packed up, sold their house, packed up, and just disappeared.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So we started, I guess we drove the first day kind of tagged into the because we were driving my half-ton truck. So we were a full-size semi, but we felt as honored and as part of the team as anybody. We
100%.
were not segregated or anything like this, and so we made it all the way to Thunder Bay as part of the team, but all the way along, it was so emotional. It was hard to talk because you saw the people, they were looking for hope, right? And we were suddenly, without even realizing the impact, but we were the symbol of hope for the country.
Yep.
Right,
And so all we were doing is driving.
We were just driving. We were just along with to try to. So honestly, if we would count the supporters, at that time,
small fringe.
This small fringe.
There was
no. This wasn't just representing a few thousand truckers. This was millions of people in Canada that were looking for something, and that politically, I think they completely misjudged what this was representing.
Oh yeah.
This was not just this fringe or just the truckers who were being impacted by not being able to cross the border. Yeah. This was far.
Well,
far
all the way through Ontario, the OPP were directing traffic and helping us.
Yes,
they were on our side.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
all the way along.
Happy, smiling.
Yep.
They were great.
Yeah.
They were really great.
People were cheering and jumping up and down, and waving the flags, and it was like so inspiring.
There wasn't one small little town or house or whatever that didn't have some sort of something out there.
You'd slow down to these little towns. People would run up to our vehicles, hand us coffee, hand us pizzas.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
We had people writing cards to us, handing us. Still have the card.
Oh, I've got a whole bag of them. My whole windshield was covered with them in Ottawa.
Yes.
Yeah. But no, I had a gentleman that was a new Canadian.
Yeah.
Okay, came out of, I believe, either India or Pakistan, somewhere around there. Yeah. Literally jumped through my window, tears streaming down his face, going, "Thank you. My children have been bullied for not taking the vaccine."
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And just bawling his eyes out, like, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Deeply moving for the country. As we were going, they had Zello. That was going. We were all listening to
it was an app. It was a communication app.
Yeah.
It was like a CB radio that went around the world.
You could use on your phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What really impressed me was how family friendly they required it to be, and they cut people off.
Oh, yes.
Even if they were starting to veer off on something, they took it off.
Yeah.
But there were kids
that
singing
were,
and all sorts of things.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. It was the most family friendly thing I've ever. There was the F Trudeau signs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But especially in Zello, that was like kindergarten friendly. It was beautiful. There was nothing wrong with
even now talking about it brings them.
Oh, I know.
I know. Yeah,
it's deep. Yeah. And I know a lot of people who've gone there. Like it just brings out their remembering. It was an amazing event. Amazing event. I think to some degree, I would say it is probably the second most impactful event in Canadian history from this. And the first one had to do when Quebec was voting on separating.
Right.
Then 100,000 people went to Montreal, and they had a big stadium or whatever there, and they said, stay in Canada, stay in Canada. That was amazing. That was beautiful. That was wonderful. But this was like that. But this was all across Canada, and it had participation all across. Most of the people that went to Montreal, I think they were from Ontario.
Yes.
In there. But it was still a very, very beautiful event. There's nothing else that really compares to it. Yeah. But okay, so when we got to Thunder Bay, one of the things I noticed was they started fueling up some trucks. You got some fuel, and they took the names of individuals. They took, I think, truck descriptions and how much fuel that they got. And I remember thinking, because before that already, they started raising under GoFundMe, and it was a couple of $1 million already.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking,
money was flowing very fast.
Yeah, very fast. And I remember thinking, this is a big movement. And I recorded while we were driving. I recorded a video that's on our website, and basically saying, you know what, I've checked out how they're managing funds and stuff like this, and what they're doing and stuff. And if people want to contribute, I recommend that they do it, because there's nothing fraudulent here. It doesn't show at all that there's fraud anywhere, and I've seen fraudulent things being done, like and stuff like this. And there was no reflection of that at all. It was very, very open and free. And there are some how do you say, kooks? There were some guys who were a little over the deep end. We've seen in Thunder Bay. And he said, yeah, and it was a little over the top. And another guy came over, patted the guy on the back, and he looked at us and he says, you know what, we include everybody here, and it was very inclusive. Even some of the people who they weren't violent. I didn't see anybody who was remotely violent.
No, not at all.
Not at all. But I mean, there are some people. And we all have them in our family. Yeah, that we look.
And probably more of them surfaced after what was happening for the prior year and a half. Right. There was more kooks that came forward because they had been isolated. They had been, there was a lot of mental duress that was happening.
But it seemed like the smarter you were, the more left you went.
Maybe.
I'm just saying from personal experience within my own. Structure.
Interestingly, the higher the educated, the less they were vaccinated. Interesting. Statistically.
Okay.
Statistically?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because I know of one that's very highly educated that's already at least 6 shots in. And, being told by the doctor that the stress of life is causing
all the problems.
Yeah.
But so we got up. I mean, I think we left at 6. Did we leave at 6 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning?
Yeah,
I think 5:30 in the morning
from
Thunder Bay.
Yeah,
and already people were lining the roads.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, yeah.
And it was freezing.
And it was so cold.
5, 6, 7. We recorded it on your thing. It's brutal
with wind chill. I think it was probably minus 40. It was
we had contacts in every town, every city that was calling us to find out when are you coming.
We want to be out
so
there.
it was all scheduled, and then when we split in Ontario and took north and south, right? Then there was still didn't matter which highway you took through Ontario, every single gravel road, highway intersection, you name it.
Overpass.
I still remember one town, a guy standing there going, vac station this way. there wasn't anybody within 100 feet. He was completely alone, but that town was packed with people egging us on. You know, and he thought he was being all proud. You know, and I opened my window. I said, "Don't worry, we're here for you too."
That's
so Thunder Bay, and then Sault Ste. Marie. I'm sorry, Sault Ste. Marie was when it was so frightfully cold.
Yes.
That night it was very, very cold.
And we have videos of that, and on our website where there was those fire trucks with the ladder way up there, and you go down the main drag there, or the street, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people. There must have been thousands of people.
In Sault Ste. Marie, there was so many
and
people.
That's the South Road. See, most of us that were bobtailing took the North Road, because there was going to be a huge storm coming down there. So we went up. So when we stopped in Kapuskasing, you thought it was cold in Sault Ste. Marie.
Way colder.
My goodness, people were putting blankets around the hoods of their trucks to try and get some sort of heat in there. You know?
My goodness,
yeah. I was lucky I had my wife with me.
Exactly. But it was we got a hotel room in Sault Ste. Marie, and then we decided we were going to get up earlier and be ahead of the convoy, because we wanted to get hotel rooms in Ottawa. Yeah. So we must have got up at 5 probably, and started leaving. But even at 5, before the convoy, an hour before the convoy was, there's people in the roads with cardboard signs, and it was goodness, so 28, cold. 30 below or something like that. At whatever 5 in the morning. What are they all there all night? Like it was
so cool.
The passion that everybody had. It was like it knew there was no bounds to what they would do to express themselves. I mean, it's been pent up for 2 years. You know, amazing.
So then we arrived in Ottawa, and we were thankful that we got a hotel actually quite close. And there was a lot of people in Ottawa already at this point, because this was kind of most of the truckers were arriving later that day. We probably got there a couple of hours before the whole.
What time did you get there?
We got there about 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, there was
Friday.
Yeah, there was the one group that got there at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's why all the exits all of a sudden were blocked, and the cops were directing us to specific areas. They tried breaking us up into little groups, to 2 block length groups. Because then they allowed the media into just one specific group. Here's this big convoy. There's only like 20 trucks. Go figure. But that first night, they wouldn't allow any porta potties, nothing. We were locked into this little 2 block thing. So me and the Manitoba road captain at the time, we went up and talked to the police. I went and told him, I said, my wife, she's having some issues right now. She needs a bathroom. We gotta leave. He's like, okay, not a problem, but you have to take a right turn here. Look at my GPS. Yeah, that works. Okay. So my truck is very low to the ground. It has a moose bumper that only had that much clearance, and I'm right next to a curb blocked right in.
Okay.
So I actually cranked the wheel. Luckily, a truck has pretty big tires, and I was able to climb up on the median, drive along the grass in between trucks on the median, come off the other side, and we were able to make that right turn. And this is in the middle of the night. Zigzag through downtown Ottawa, and all of a sudden land right there on Metcalfe and Albert looking at the Parliament.
Right there.
This is a good place to park. Perfect. That's where we sat for 22 days.
Your truck was on Toronto Sun, the front page, far right truck. Man, that's... Did you didn't pre-plan that?
Not at all. There's pictures of me hanging, it was my idea to put the 3 Canada flags on the grills of our trucks. And the picture for the first few weeks was with me standing in the middle, hanging the one middle flag. And then all of a sudden they took one with just all 3 trucks, and that's been used. I have thousands. People will send me, look what just came up on the local news. Look what came up. Whenever they want to talk about the blockade, it was our 3 trucks with a car in the turn lane, his signal on, but they'd take a picture right then. Oh, look at the blockade. They're not allowing anyone through. Meanwhile, the guy's making a left turn. But whatever.
Well, that Yeah, that's and I guess in the morning we get up. Oh, the horns.
Yes.
What time did the horns start? I guess it would have been. Were they honking already on Friday?
Yeah, but it wasn't as organized then. It was just everybody, we made it to
We're
Ottawa.
excited.
Look, we're here.
Yay, we're here.
Yeah.
And-
I actually have tinnitus because of those horn honkings, but, whatever.
So when did it start? It must have started at 8 in the morning on Saturday, eh? I'm going. We have a video of it, and we were on what floor were we on? We were 10th floor,
10th floor,
something
At
like
the
that.
Sheridan or
No,
which one were you at?
Isn't it Marriott?
Marriott, probably.
I think
It was
it's
Marriott or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
Kind of just around the corner. So you had to go, I guess, north to where the
Queen
Supreme
Street
Court
there?
is.
Yeah.
And then
right.
you take a left, and then we were just kind of one block there.
Right.
So it wasn't that far. We had a very nice location as far as walking back and forth because it was so cold. We had to go back and warm up at some occasion. And then I had truck trouble too. So by the way, the police officers that were all down there, they were so friendly.
Oh, they were nice.
They were like cordial and polite, and we were too, right? But we felt no negativity from them at all.
No.
And I needed to get out with my truck. They showed me how they kind of led me through how I could get in and out because everything had been cordoned off, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But they were very good to us. And then
the first 3 weeks, we listened to everything the mayor had to say. We followed every rule.
Yeah. And every day, we like several times a day, we would walk down, spend a few hours there, and come back to warm up, and then go back.
It wouldn't be a few hours. I think I did it. I walked for 40 or 45 minutes, and I said I got to get out of here. And I had these big boots on with insulated and everything. It was so blasted cold.
Oh yes,
it
was really bad. But
while we were there, and I don't know what it is from the trucker's perspective, but from ours, we noticed that there was some prayer gatherings happening on the hill.
Yeah,
I have video even as well. Every night at 7:00 in front of my truck there.
Yeah.
Our whole block would gather and say the Lord's Prayer in every language that was represented. It
was this, and that was so bizarre. If we'd go back to our hotel room, we'd watch the news.
Yeah,
it's like, where are you guys?
Yeah,
because you are not reporting what is actually. We are there. We know what's going on here, and what you're reporting is a complete different story. Yeah. It is like nothing what the news was. And all the, like, not just the CBC, all the different news.
My first interview was with the New York Times. 45 minutes of answering questions. You know what they actually put on air? I have no job. That was it. So that's what my company used. Like, you lied because of course you had a job. Well, I had to self-register. No, technically I was an independent while I was there. But no, to cut a whole sentence, into
their narrative, what they wanted to.
But that was it out of the whole interview.
It was like all of the news agencies got together and said, we are going to report something completely different than what's actually happening. And it was supporting what the government wanted the world, or Canada, and the world too, but all of Canada to hear, which was not what was actually happening. And it was, for us who were there, it was such a stark contrast exactly from what was reality to what people were saying, or what the news was saying. So then, I mean, my wife was back home, yours was back home. They're talking to people, and they're coming. Okay, well, this is what we're hearing. This is what we're seeing on the news. But they would come to them and say, okay, but your husband's out there. What is really happening? And my wife would.
Well, there was a lot of Facebook stuff that
gave the real story.
Gave the real story.
But for those people who weren't connected to the right links, if they just were facing the
CBC or CBC or Global,
as their source of the news, they got a completely wrong. They were fed a lie. It was blatant lies what they were being told.
Let's talk about some of the people that we met there, and because there are some on Saturday, we get up and we start walking around and starting meeting people and stuff like this. And there was some strange people there. There was one guy, and it was so cold, and yet he was there in his underwear. That's all he had. It was just his underwear, and he was dancing around. And he must have been there for a few hours. How in the world that guy didn't get frostbite? I don't know.
No, when your blood's running that thin at that time.
Yeah. Some people,
some of them were really dry.
But they were okay. I would just to qualify that they were rare.
Yeah,
if there was one out of 1,000 people that was like that. Now, of course, you notice those one out of 1,000.
Of course,
exactly.
But the 999.
But they weren't violent.
Nobody's violent.
Nobody was violent.
Not once.
Not one.
Did I see
even at the end? Even at the end.
It was amazing. There was one that I think me and you were standing by the fence there, like the metal fence, and the only drunk guy, I actually thought, like the really drunk guy, there was a guy carrying his friend. Remember that guy? And he says, "Oh, my friend, he had too much to drink. He's so sorry." And then the drunk guy started, "I'm so sorry. I drank too much. I'm so disappointed at myself." And on he went like this. And it was so funny. This old Canadian, apologetic about being drunk.
Of course.
It was just, I'm sorry. I really wanted to enjoy this.
Well, it was a joyous occasion. And some people, the few people, but again, very few people.
That was the only drunk guy I ever met.
Yes. But for the most part, it was joyful.
Yeah.
It was exuberant. It was. This is actually a celebration because this is a symbol of hope for everyone. There's hope. There's hope. And the more everyone that you're high-fiving, it was so cheerful. Then, okay, we're here for so long, there was cleanup crews. There was not a speck of garbage. There was not a cigarette.
You should have seen my street. Yeah.
There was not a cigarette box. You could not find it. It had never been so clean. Right?
Yeah.
We ourselves bought a whole bunch of shovels. We handed them out because when it would snow, so that
But somebody else had that idea before.
Everybody
had shovels.
So there was 1,000 shovels for everybody.
It was like the jerry cans, right?
Like
you couldn't buy one within 200 miles.
Yes.
U.S. side was drained of jerry cans.
It
was mind blowing.
And people would drive in every day from Toronto and from different places with van loads of food that they would every afternoon.
Our local town, our local bakery sent a whole van load of stuff. I remember getting a box of cookies. I even have pictures of it. About the truckers' convoy, and it was from my hometown. And how can you not cry with that? The emotions every day.
Yeah. Then they had some speakers. Yeah, and the speakers were there. Now we listened to. There was one guy was a pretty good speaker. I think he was a preacher or something like that too. There was always a prayer in and prayer out. There was, I think, what's her name? The one who's getting all the attention. Tamara. Yeah. She introduced this person from British Columbia that was from some tribe or something.
Yeah, the Aboriginal lady. Yeah.
Aboriginal lady, and she did her prayers and stuff like that. And that the one thing that I noticed, or one thing. About it, I was standing there. We were only about 30 feet away from the podium, and it was brutally cold. But there was waves of marijuana that came in. Oh, don't you remember?
Oh my goodness.
And it was thick. It was thick. I started getting a headache, so we had to move. I had to move 3 times before I had to got it. But I mean, it's illegal, and there wasn't very many people doing it. But they always did it.
How do you mean there weren't a lot of people? Sitting in my truck, every day people would come up with bags. Here, you need this more than I do. Full Ziploc bags of bud.
Really?
And I can't come anywhere near marijuana. It gives me a migraine headache.
Oh, really?
So it would be like, no. The half ton behind me. The half ton. Well, a week in, the guy from the half ton comes up. He goes, Ross, you got to stop sending guys back there. I got about 4 months worth. Oh, yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. No, it was amazing. Like I remember we were standing there and by the fence, and this was all on Saturday, and we met people from Jamaica, from Haiti, from all sorts as they were doing. There was one group that he said, "Hey, you know what you're doing?" And he says, "Oh, we're here on a prayer vigil."
Yes.
That they were doing, and what do you mean? He says, "Oh, we got a whole team of youth, or not youth, they were adults or whatever, and they would all they'd be doing is going up and down Wellington, and all they're doing is praying. You know, and so we talked to him for a bit, and he said, "Okay, I got to go," and then he would take off, and you'd watch them, and as they come in pairs and they go through, totally like obviously nonviolent and stuff like this, but there was somebody on they're doing street evangelism and stuff like that. So there was a religious component to it.
Very much so.
But not just Christianity. There was Hindus there.
Sikhs. We got fed by Sikhs with big ceremonial swords. You know, the only weapons ever in downtown other than the police.
The other thing I want to point out. So all of the businesses were shut down.
Yeah, and had been for the last 3 years. This was nothing new.
But the few that were, like, there was a few delis. Remember we went to that one deli?
Oh, yes.
And we went in there to get some food. And the guy was telling us that the day before, the police had come and gave him an ultimatum to shut down. Because they weren't supposed to be open.
No.
They were, and
Tim Hortons made the mistake of posting that he made more money with the convoy than he had for the last 3 years. They came down and shut him down on health code violations.
Oh, no way. Oh my goodness.
So the businesses wanted to be open, but they were not permitted to be open.
Exactly.
Right. So that's one thing that the media would present, that they were all terrified. No, they were not terrified at all.
No.
The few that opened were doing it actually in direct viation to what they're being instructed.
The Thai restaurant ran out of food every night.
Every day.
Every night they ran out of food, and they had amazing food. We went there. You're getting so tired of Thai after a while. But there wasn't a lot of options.
There was one day we went out for Chinese. Remember that story? We found a Chinese restaurant or whatever, and
we had to walk quite a ways away.
To pick it up. Or didn't we drive?
No. We'd walk there.
Okay.
We'd walk there.
So we go into the Chinese restaurant and we made our order, and we were standing there, and there was this lady that came in. And I did not look. I didn't look like an accountant. I looked like we both looked like truck drivers or just ruffians, some lumberjacks or something like that. And we started talking with her, and she was a nice enough lady. Her husband was a dentist, I guess. She worked in
that one, that one we actually drove to because we had truck trouble and we needed to get to that dealership. And then so this was a few, probably 15 miles out of this where the core was, right? And that's where we met that lady.
And she worked either for the city or for the government somehow, or the federal government went. And she mentioned that he said, why are you here? Oh, we're here for the convoy. And she said there are people in the office that she works at that hate the convoy and can't stand it. And she started to really express her emotions about it. And we talked about vaccination or not vaccination and stuff like this. And we said, well, for instance, what are doing for business and stuff like this. We're an accounting firm, and we do paperless. And so if it's paperless, it's all distance. And she says, you'll be okay then, And technically, yes, because we were paperless in 2019. So that was okay. But we were talking about vaccinations or not vaccinations and stuff like this. And she started saying, well, don't you feel unsafe with people who are unvaccinated? And I said, well, why? Why? And she had come to. It was like when we're talking to her, suddenly it's like she had tunnel vision, and suddenly something more came into her mind.
It's like she listened to herself say these words, and then all of a sudden, what I'm saying doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah. It's like they had blinders on, and all they were looking through is like a paper towel tube or something like that. And then, we felt that the light went on for this lady, And I thought it was a good meeting. It was great. She thought we were a bunch of radicals to start out with, and in the end, it came.
Speaking of which, while in Ottawa, I thought I was coming down with COVID. Okay. I was getting sick and weak and whatnot. And I was working basically 20-hour days. I'd go and sleep for a few hours, but I just never felt like I could leave my truck while people were still walking by.
Yes.
Because they would ask questions. They'd have something to say or whatever. So my wife was getting so upset, like, I don't see you at all.
No.
Because she would spend most of the time in the hotel room. Who wants
Yes.
to be outside in the freezing
Yes.
cold if you don't have to? Okay, well, there were doctors that would come and see us, that were on our side,
Yeah.
that were actually making their own ivermectin, even though the government would seize about 30% of the one ingredient that only comes from Germany. They would catch about 30% or so, and then they'd destroy it. They'd never get it. But the one guy saw me. He goes, well, you're definitely coming down with something. Gave me a prescription for antibiotics.
Yeah.
Okay, well, one of the half-tons in the convoy came and picked me up. We went to a pharmacy, and I walked in. And of course, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm part of the convoy. That's just what we do, right? Walk in, go up to the counter, and I hand the prescription over. He looks at me. He looks at the prescription. People start coming around behind me. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm just there to fill a prescription. She's going, sorry, I don't have any of this for you. Oh. It's just a basic antibiotic, amoxicillin or whatever. Like what pharmacy doesn't have probably a bag full of it in the back? Yes. And all of a sudden, people started talking around. What are you doing here, you dirty, filthy animal? Get the F out of here.
Oh, no kidding.
And they started screaming at me.
No.
At the top of my lungs. And I just slowly walked out, literally encircled with not only staff, but customers.
Wow.
Screaming into my ears. And I said, don't worry, folks. I'm here for you too.
Yeah.
And I just walked out.
Yeah.
And then we went to the next one, and even the guys in the truck said, well, how bad do you want this prescription? Meanwhile, after I got the prescription, because the next place I went in, whatever, I put a mask on.
Yes.
I need my prescription, right? I'll do it for you, but that's it. And I found out after I wasn't sick with anything at all. It was basically malnutrition. I hadn't eaten in 36 hours because I was on the street with the people nonstop. So as soon as I ate something, perked up right away. Everything was great, but it was just that story, of going into the pharmacy and how these people
responded to you.
Yeah.
Remember that couple that we ran into? They were sleeping in their truck, and they had for how many days? And then we said, you know what? Why don't you come to our hotel room?
Yeah.
You can use, because they hadn't showered, they had nothing, because they were just living in their truck, right? And so every day, then we handed them our keys, and we left.
Well, that happened all the time. All of us did that with people on the street. We allowed them into our hotel rooms.
The atmosphere that to describe it. I'm not a camper. You've done camping, okay?
We're not campers.
You're not campers?
No.
But there's in Canada, camping is a big thing.
It is,
right?
Not much else to do.
And so so people pack up their tents or their wares, and they go to a campground, and then they have 5, 6, 7, 8 people all around them or whatever, and everybody gets to know everybody. And it's a fun time. And they may have 1 or 2 beers, and that's about it. Occasionally the bad ones or whatever, you get the real drunk ones or whatever. But the vast majority of good campers, they just get to know new people.
And it's a
cheerful, just wonderful.
Experience.
That's what the atmosphere was.
Yes.
Actually, a little bit more than that, because everybody was exuberant through the whole thing too.
Yeah.
But it was the most playful and respectful time.
And giving.
I've never seen.
This is a city that
generous.
hated truckers. I don't know if you guys were ever in the Arc where we had the Corps for a while there to see the map of Ottawa. Okay, they put a dot. Just a little black dot on every house that was donating a shower or a room or just a bathroom or a meal or whatever, right? You couldn't see any of the city.
It was all
they couldn't even send people to most places because they couldn't see which address was okay with it. It was covered in black, the whole city. I had a gentleman came up to my window because I was the block captain for 10 blocks behind me, and so anybody who had questions would come up to my truck. And this gentleman came, he goes, I don't know what to do. I came up here with my family. He had 5 kids, his wife, and himself, and we're out of money. My van's broken down twice on the way here. He came all the way out from BC by himself after the convoy had already arrived. Okay, van broke down twice. He goes, I have no gas in my van. I don't even know how I'm going to get home. I'm broke. Within an hour, I made a phone call. I got him a full house in Gatineau.
Yeah.
Full house for his whole entire family, donated. His tank on his van full, enough gas cards and food cards to get him all the way back home.
Yeah.
He stayed there for about a week or so. That was about all they could, and then they went home. But I've got a file on my phone of just Ottawa people that will be friends for life.
Yeah.
For life.
Yeah.
Wife and I went on a motorbike trip last year all the way to Newfoundland.
Yeah.
I had places to stay every night.
Wow.
No problem. Just make make a phone call. Away we go.
What's fascinating for me is the sequence of events that happened. Somewhere around January 1st, 2022, there was a poll conducted that showed that 35% of Canadians wanted the mandates dropped. That means that 65 wanted some form to continue.
Yeah, they're in favor of it.
In favor of it. And January 2nd, Quebec issued out a curfew. And in the decree specifying the terms of the curfew, leaving one's house between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. to walk a dog is not a valid reason for breaking the curfew. That's the health minister, Christian Dubé. In there. And so things were really getting tightened a lot in there. January 11th, Quebec announces fines for non-vaccinated Quebecers. The Canadian province of Quebec announced Tuesday that residents who have refused a COVID-19 vaccination will soon have to pay a fine. I don't know if anybody remember that was, everybody kind of was shocked at that.
Yes, I remember that.
But the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, made a comment that said, I don't know if that's legal or not.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yes.
I'm thinking, wow.
Coming from you.
Is Quebec going even further than what Justin was doing? Like that was a little bit of a shocker to me. But the move was getting tighter and tighter and harsher and harsher. In there.
Was it not Manitoba that came up with the passport first?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden countries and provinces took it,
Well, we couldn't get out of the province.
Yeah.
They had shut down the
highways.
The highways
RCMP.
Now, when it came to the passport, the vaccination passport, I knew in my heart that this was never going to fly.
Yep.
I've been in the trucking industry long enough. I don't know. You've been in it too now. Okay. Remember the I-94 card?
Yep.
And then there was another one. Can't remember what it was. And then there's the Nexus. Okay. And what all three of them, what they would do, the I-94 says this is all you need to do and you cross over the border and it makes everything faster. Blah blah blah.
Yep.
They did that for 2 years, and rumbling, and they dropped the whole thing and started right from scratch, and they started a new program. This is all you need. Blah 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 blah. Kept
global something,
whatever it was.
Global Nexus, I think.
No,
is
it different?
Like the Fast Pass is what's current, right? which has always been useless to me.
Yeah.
I've had to have one with every company I drove for.
Yeah.
It's never helped me once.
Yes.
Not once.
Yeah.
I have clients who don't have a fast card, and they get past the border faster.
Exactly.
Yes.
You're responsible for more questions while having a fast card.
Pass.
Yeah. So I looked at it and I said, the government took 10 years to get the Nexus or Fast Card. Fast. That's what it was, Nexus, and then it was Fast Card.
Right.
But they took 10 years to develop something that still really doesn't work. And now in 2 years' time or a year's time, they're going to get a passport that you have to coordinate every province to do this. I said, forget it. They're gonna. This is going to the long run registry. That's where it's going to happen with this. They're going to start a whole bunch of things and it's going to fall down. And that's actually exactly what happened.
Yep.
Because now nobody has it.
And our country spent millions on setting up an app. I'm sorry, but any 15-year-old kid out there can do an app better than
Are we talking about the ArriveScan?
Yeah, the ArriveScan app was the...
Sorry.
And I was force registered the last time I entered back into Canada. The customs officer refused me to say, no, I will not register because I'm not coming back, buddy.
Yes.
I'm done. The restrictions are coming in 5 days. You won't see me again. I'm finished. No, well, it'll just take a second. Just take a second. No choice.
I realized that they are grossly leaning over their skis, and there's going to be a face plant because it can't. And the media pushed it, and I said, there is no way that they're going to do it. Everybody was yelling and screaming. Our bureaucracy. Never underestimate the incompetence of bureaucracy. That's
didn't you guys have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and didn't you have an RCMP guy come to your house?
Oh, our house, yes.
Yeah.
Why did we?
You I
know. We had to, and we had RCMP come out to our place.
Yes.
Wow.
And we never answered the door, but we still have on my phone somewhere. I have his footprints coming in. Anyway, it's unadministrable. It was not actually the RCMP in the end. They just backed off, and this is not.
It's unconstitutional.
It's not possible to do to control so many people, the populace.
Yeah, it's just not. I'd like to tell a story. Actually, your dad used to work for a company years ago, back when he was still around. Penner Tire.
Yes, this would be late '60s and early '70s, a long time ago.
Yeah.
No. That he worked for it. Yes. But this Penner Tire is actually just when in World War II, when World War II just was coming in, and Canada was at war. United States wasn't yet because we were part of Britain or whatever. And so the government sent out letters to all of the tire places in Canada.
There's a shortage of rubber.
Because there was a shortage of rubber.
True.
We had to, not quarantine. What do you
allocate resources to
restrict
to the war fund,
exactly.
to the war effort.
Yep.
And so all of the tire shops got this letter, and they had to sell their tires at a good rate, or I guess a good rate to the government, market rate. 90% of their inventory they sold to the government.
Okay.
And so they were all packaging it up and putting it together in inventory, invoicing, and the whole thing. But Penner Tire, I don't know what the guy's first name was, out of Blumenort, just out here, he decided,
Are you talking KK Penner? Or are you
no.
Are you talking Penner Tire?
Yeah, Penner Tire.
So but that wasn't Blumenort then. That was Steinbeck.
That was Steinbeck.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he looked and he says, "Why am I selling tires to the government just because they send me a letter?" So he just decided not to do it. All of his other competitors said, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You know, come on, you got to do this."
Yep.
And he said, "Let them come to my door and ask for it." You know.
Yep.
And he basically did nothing. A couple of months later, once all the tires were all in or whatever. He never got a second call, or he never got anything. And then a new, well, not a mandate, but a new regulation came out that said you cannot buy any new tire unless you send in a copy of what you just sold, because your inventory has to stay the same as it was, and the like. So he never sold anything to the government. He had 10, 20 times the inventory that any of the competitor had in the whole district,
right?
And he had a virtual monopoly in all of in whole just because he refused to cooperate with the government initially. And that guy, very, very wealthy.
Yeah, I bet.
It was a huge boondoggle for him. Great, if anybody's, I guess, a rebel, and just, we don't have to do the first thing that comes when the government asks for something. Yeah, we don't have to jump. We can wait until somebody acts on it. If everybody does that, the entire country would just the government would cease to.
They'd start actually following the people.
Yes,
they'd be forced.
And by the way, I want to make a very good point. It was the average Joe, the average blue collar. Was represented by the truckers, but it was the regular folks that really were the force behind this trucker convoy.
Right.
It was all these blue collar workers, because it was the regular Joe that could see, you know what, this is not the country that we want. That's right. Now it's very interesting what's happening. I mean, even today. What's happening in Germany, in France, with the farmers, right? In Spain, all these things really was inspired by what happened in Canada.
Oh, absolutely!
Right? All these things that are happening over there, And there's thousands.
Oh,
I think
there
there's
is.
200,000 that are involved in the German one right now. All inspired by the common people saying, you know what?
That's enough.
This is, I can't go along with this anymore. I'm not going to go along with what this government is pushing. And the average people, that's why I'm saying it's millions.
Yeah.
It's millions.
Well, look at Christine Anderson out of Europe.
Yeah.
You know, the shaming she received coming to Canada.
Yes.
Nobody says a word about her while she's back in her home country.
No.
Comes here, meets with a couple MLAs, and all of a sudden Trudeau and
all
you know the conservative leaders.
Who's Christine Anderson?
She's a member
EU.
of Parliament.
The EU Parliament.
EU Parliament,
okay.
and she is huge for the truckers' convoy, and ever since then been a massive advocate for all things freedom.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, she came to Canada, and the shaming she received was embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know, she was racist. She was anti-color, anti-everything.
And anybody that would meet with her was painted with this brush.
Yep.
And I give credit to politicians that did meet with her and say, you know what? I may not agree with. In fact, there's nobody that I agree with entirely.
No.
Yeah.
There's some people, but I would like to listen. I just because I don't agree with them entirely.
Yeah.
You know, Ross, I've never met you before.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there's things that we have in common. There's a lot of things we have in common that we can agree on. There's probably some things that we might see differently.
No doubt.
And that's okay. That's actually
Isn't
that's
it?
what
It's
freedom
good.
is all
Yeah.
about.
It has to be.
I won't cry because you have a different opinion.
It's right.
But our society has become so oversensitive.
Yeah.
You hint at something, and they will come down on you hard.
Yeah.
You know, like I won't get into details because we all know the things that
Canada
are out
used
there
to
right
be
now.
the most tolerant
of
all, and it's split. And I think it's going to have to take a forceful effort for people to say, listen, I'm laying aside my position, just so that we can be
Everybody
friends
is entitled to their opinion, and I don't have to be offended by it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just because your opinion is different than mine.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, think what in business, if we would reject everybody,
we would
who
have no
doesn't
customers. You'd have no
Yeah.
customers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have to learn this in order to survive in the real world.
Yeah.
You know? It's just a maturity, and to have these in universities being taught safe spaces, that is absolutely upside down to what you actually need to survive in the real world.
Yes.
And so they're actually poisoning some of the young people so that they're going to be unsuccessful in business.
Yes.
I sometimes get resumes from some schools, and the first I say, that school, nope, it goes straight into the garbage because I know how polluted some of them are. Now I look at them, and if I look through the resume and I see 3 or 4 years of McDonald's or Wendy's and worked himself into management or something, well, that's different.
Yes.
Because now they got some sort of marbles in their head,
Yes.
or whatever. But if all they have is just college, university, or whatever. No, we'll wait for 2 3 years for the real world to sink in.
20, 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
It was the university degree.
Yeah,
that's what
that's
you
what you
needed to get ahead.
But now it's the exact opposite.
It is.
Yeah.
And
Actually, the universities, many of them, and we especially, it's been hit the news so much, even with the current situation, where the Ivy League schools have restricted. There's no free speech there anymore.
No.
You are
isn't.
only allowed
They're not taught free
they're
speech.
Not, no.
Our Christian universities here in our province are not free.
Yeah.
That blew me away because I know somebody that was a professor there, had to teach from home because refused to take the vaccine, and they enforced everybody on campus. They tried to fire this person. They pulled out their contract. You can't. When the tenure was up, that person decided to just leave because nothing was changing after all the mandates were lifted.
Yeah.
I do sense that there is a shift happening. The pendulum has swung.
Yeah.
And the pendulum is now starting to.
I hope so.
Like that is.
I hope so.
In a lot of different areas, but whether it's from a freedom perspective on how we live in a society with people of different opinions and different perspectives, I sense, and I'm hoping that it's true, that the pendulum is moving back.
Well, our churches need to reclaim some of their
and stand
respect.
up and and stand up.
Stand up.
Has anyone ever seen the letter that was sent to all churches across Canada threatening their 501c3, which is their donation status, their charitable status?
Yeah.
You know, you don't follow every rule.
Putting it into context, we have a lot of Hindus and Muslims here.
I'm sure they got the same letters, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm sure
those at the same
temples
time,
got the same
the one of the biggest issues for the Muslim and Hindu issues and the Million Man March in Toronto.
Right.
They said, "Look, you leave our children alone." You know, and there is pushback and solid. You know, I mean, when you
if anyone has an honest conversation with one of the immigrants over the last 4 years, okay, I've spoken to quite a few. You know, when I was on the road, I like to get to know people of whatever nationality. They've been given a mandate to come into Canada. You follow our rules. This is coming from Liberal government, or you will get sent back. So the vaccine, they had no choice. Why is it? You look on the roads now, you're almost probably 70% immigrant compared to a generational Canadian on the road still. I don't feel safe. They're not being trained properly. They're fast-tracked with their license, just like the vaccine was. You know?
Yeah, so universities, there's a move back. If you had children, do you have kids? How old are you?
I had one that just finished university at the beginning of the pandemic.
How do you train a child to go through university? Because it used to be you just walk and it's fine, but now you have to prep them.
Yeah,
there's actually courses in the United States that some people say, okay, if you're going to do that, you take a year off and these
I wish
courses or stuff like this.
Yeah,
and I know there's
very different ways of thinking from the one that did not to the one that did.
Yeah,
and it's been very difficult to get along through some of these restrictions. You know, very difficult. Just the thought process, you know, is so, I call it brainwashing. Yeah. Universities are very good at that.
Yeah, very, very good at that. And really, you can, I have a part-time employee, an engineer, who is going through university. But he's driven truck for many years, been dispatcher and stuff like this. Now he's into...
So he knows how to use his brain.
Yeah, he's a software... he's being trained for a software engineer. And he sees the crap being assigned to him.
Yep.
And he compensates for it, and his position is strong, you know, because he'll regurgitate what the professor has, and then he says, but this is my opinion, you know, and he's going to make it through. He'll be okay.
Yeah. But he's an independent thinker. He's
not 20 years old.
He's not just repeating what he's being told from the...
he's confident in
his own thinking.
Yeah, in his own thinking. Because he had to write a report about meritocracy and the
versus DEI and some of these different
and he said the something about the article was meritocracy is the worst thing that's happened and blah blah blah. Well, the entire economy actually operates on meritocracy. If you're competent in one area, you're going to be given more and more and more.
Yes.
And that's the issue. But they say no. You have to these other.
That's racist.
That's racist. No, it's not racist.
No, it's not racist.
I don't care what.
I don't care what race you are.
Race, religion, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you're good at what you're doing, I want you in my company.
Yes.
You know, and that's what we're teaching.
I want the best pilot. I don't care what religion.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't care what nationality.
Yep.
I want the guy that is the sharpest pilot. Or the sharpest surgeon, working on me.
100%.
I don't want the person. Well, because we don't have any people from this gender or from this, political viewpoint, or from this, from this race, that they are now given a position because of those things, and now I have to. No. Forget that. I don't care what the guy's race is. I don't care what the guy's religion is. If he's operating on me, I want the guy that is the sharpest cookie, that has the most experience.
Yep.
That.
That's for sure. And so they're being trained to be exact opposite of how the world actually works.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous. And so like if you're a truck driver who has kids and they're about to go into university, you have to seriously consider maybe they should take a year off.
Yep.
And or 2 years or however much. There's no law that you go from 18 go straight into university or something.
No. And you have to wonder. Okay, consider, is university the best course?
Yeah.
For their life.
Yeah. Your schoolings are.
It used to be
changing.
like when I remember, when my kids were going through junior high and high school, and man, I wanted my kids to go to university.
Yeah, same
right?
thing.
Because
I was so proud.
Then they would be on the right track.
Yep.
I have a completely different view right now.
Yep.
Because they might be actually way better off not going to unless they are prepared to deal with some of the indoctrination. If you know that you're being indoctrinated, you can fight against it.
You can recognize
it and say, okay,
yeah.
I see exactly what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit, you're sending your children, and it's difficult to say an 18-year-old is a child.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for them to say, oh, no, I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
They're a little bit in that rebellious state or whatever, but they have to truly be under. They have to see what's coming for them, and it's a dangerous thing.
It is.
And it's very, very sobering. Now, universities are. A lot of this is starting, especially in the last 5 years. There's the attendance for universities is starting to go down and significantly.
Yep.
I know there's and yet here in Canada they throw hundreds of millions of dollars towards these universities, and it looks as if they're just sinking and sinking.
Well, I think less and less Canadians are. They're trying to offset that by bringing foreigners.
Yes, look at each university, and you will see a massive amount, a percentage from other countries.
Yeah.
It's huge. They give incentives like you wouldn't believe.
And they for the university, they get more money getting
Absolutely.
foreign students in.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Well, Canada, like I know in the United States, there's an awful lot of like their numbers are going down quite a bit, and it's changing quite a bit. But if I was a truck driver and my kids were just on the verge of going to university or not, I would seriously consider a year or two off and say, wait a minute, because oftentimes at 18, 19 years of age, did we really even know what we wanted to do?
No.
Most of the guys go to university and say, I don't know what to do. Well, what do you do? Well, I'll take humanities to start off with. And then in the second or third year, you figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
No, you're guided by those, by the career guidance thing and your pressure towards it. Well, if you don't know what you're doing, what the heck are you doing in there in the first place?
Exactly.
When I at that age, when I ended up going to college, actually, I was thinking that someday I'm going to be a computer programmer, and my aspirations were to work for IBM, and to be
because that was the best.
That was the best. You know what?
Yep.
My career choice or route is so far different than what my perspective was 18, 19, 20, right? And I'm so happy that I didn't end up going where I thought would be the best choice for me at that time. And so
there's a lot, especially when it comes to computer programming. We got
a number of them,
almost 4 or 5 of them
working for you right now.
Almost about 80% of them do not have formal training.
Yeah,
and some of these guys.
But they're whizzes.
They're just unbelievable. They talk in hieroglyphics. I have no idea what they're talking about. But they really know their stuff, and you do not need to, nowadays. You do not need to go to.
You can always learn anything on YouTube. Yeah. You can always learn anything without having to go to formal education.
I'll tell you a story about one of our programmers. He's actually in the other room. But we had 4 or 5 guys who said, "Hey, we want to be programmers. We want to be programmers." And I love initiative and entrepreneurialism, and if you set your mind to it. And I said, "Okay, we have these programs that we bought, and basically there's several languages or whatever. It's about oh goodness, I think it was something like 40 or 50 hours or 80 hours of programming that you just download and just watch.
Yes.
And we got them, and it says, here's these 4 or 5 guys, go through this and take them, and at the end we'll give you an assignment and see if you can do some programming on this thing. Okay. Well, of the 4 or 5 that started, only 1 or 2 actually started on an assignment.
Oh.
And halfway through the assignment, one of them dropped out. And in the end, only one guy went all the way through the assignment. We looked at it and how he had done everything like that. And the assignment actually is on our app that we have because it actually works.
Right.
Well, we hired him.
Yeah.
He has zero. He came from a house
not a
that didn't even
university
have
graduate.
internet, believe it or not.
No
And,
kidding.
yeah, it's just like whatever. And now he's actually pretty good. Like he's learning. So 2 years. Within 2 years, he's going to learn an awful lot. But it saves him probably about $12,000 worth of tuition and 2 years of stuff. And he's going to be way further ahead than anybody out there.
Yeah.
Just because there's a mentoring program that it goes way faster if you have hands-on knowledge and stuff like this. It's I love the idea of, because realistically I don't hire for somebody who has knowledge.
Yeah.
I hire people for initiative. If they want to work, if they want to do, if they have a real interest in it, you know what?
They can learn.
They can
The
learn.
rest they can learn.
Yeah, the rest they can learn. So same as in accounting. We just we're sending somebody through one of our training programs, and they're going to be probably, if they do well on the test or so, they're gonna learn. And that's what education is changing. Yeah. And I think in 10, 20 years, it's going to be completely different.
This is way off from our topic.
Yeah, rabbit trail.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll start recording again and continue on in the Freedom Convoy, and we'll get back on our track again.
You bet.
Yes.
All right. For those who are listening, we'll see you next podcast. If you want to learn more ways to become a professional independent operator, subscribe to this channel. If you want to support what we do, like, share, and turn on that notification.